Ever since Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless decided to go their separate ways in 2016, First Take, at least in my opinion, has kind of sucked. Now don't get me wrong, when Skip Bayless left, I wasn't expecting the show to reach some epic level of quality immediately, but now that it's been basically 2 years since the retooling of the show, and I still feel the same way for the most part, I wanted to make a video voicing my opinion as a fan and giving some constructive criticism on how I go about fixing some of the issues. Before getting to the specifics, I do want to stress that I am for the most part a fan, and I'm sure there are a bevy of issues in the background that probably would stop a lot of these things I'm listing from happening. But regardless of that, I still want to voice my opinion not only for myself, but for a large portion of the fan base in hopes that someone of relevance at ESPN would see this and take steps to make the show better. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into some of the reasons why I think First Take kinda sucks.
I just don't know what to say! I don't know what to say!
One of the most important parts of having any debate, televised or otherwise, is that both debaters are allowed to have time to properly set up and explain their points without interruption. This allows the person presenting their point to not only say why they think they're right, but also bring in context and set up a storyline for people viewing who are just now tuning in and trying to figure out the facts. Stephen A. Smith and Max are terrible at this, to put it bluntly, and while it does bring some of the best segments in the show, with Stephen A. Smith raging at some outlandish thing that Max says, most of the time it ends up being all three people on the show yelling at each other, all trying to say the same things in different ways, all because they didn't let each other finish their sentence. Now, interrupting each other while having a conversation is pretty normal for the most part, and I am not saying that this can't happen whatsoever, but when it comes to having a structured debate, the moderator or the host have to let each other speak or it just becomes frustrating to listen to. This happens a lot when Stephen A. Smith or Max get into the apex of their point, or one of the hosts asks a question to help make a point in their own debate. This wouldn't be that bad either if they didn't do this every single take and take it so serious.
Right. Yes, I will. You've been saying it all year.
No, Trevor Lawrence has been the presumptive best quarterback in college football for weeks and weeks and weeks.
FS1, Skip, and Shannon have devised a really good way of handling this by creating a joke dynamic to reset the conversation and let the moderator or themselves restructure and allow each other to make their points.
Ooh, Skip, was that a performance yesterday?
Is it my turn?
No, it's not your turn yesterday.
You gotta let him go here.
It's not your turn just yet.
This is one of the main reasons why the show is really hard to watch, because you feel like it's less about the actual topic and it's more about arguing for the sake of arguing, if that makes sense. While a lot of that is on both Stephen A. and Max to fix, the main issue lies on the moderator, which brings me to my next point.
Be quiet! Could you please just be quiet?
I need to preface this point with saying that I have a great amount of respect for Molly Quorum. I think as a person, she is awesome, and if you take the time to just listen to what she has to say in interviews and solo discussions, she is actually great to listen to. But as a moderator, she is terrible. Like really, really bad. The main issue, which is going to be a reoccurring theme in this video by the way, is that she won't stop interrupting. As a moderator, your only real job is to fact check, set up talking points in a fair and unbiased manner, and to make sure everyone gets the point across in the time given. Molly does all of those things just terribly.
I'm bringing into the equation health in this particular argument. This man supposedly had back surgery. Now, let's
And hip surgery, Stephen A.
Well, listen, reportedly, a lot of times when you see guys and they don't play in college or whatever, who knows in this day and age what
Reportedly back and hip.
Allow me to finish, Molly. Thank you very much. I'm getting to that.
Sorry, I'm just trying to moderate and add details, facts to the story. Just trying to do my job as well. Wasn't trying to interrupt, just trying to interject information.
Well, I appreciate y'all interrupting, but let me speak.
At this point, it is super clear she wants to do more than be a moderator, which is fine if her role was third debater and they gave her 25 more minutes to the show, but she's not, and because she refuses to stick to her role, she ends up interrupting Stephen A. Smith and Max mid-sentence, blurting out some uninformed opinion, making everyone stop and correct her, and just ruining the flow they had, eating a big chunk of debate time, and just overall screwing up the segment. As a moderator, it is extremely important that you only speak when absolutely necessary and become as unnoticeable as possible to make everything flow. But it is so clear that Molly doesn't want to do that and has her own agenda to get as much TV time as possible, even if it means screwing up the segment. What makes it even worse is that the majority of the time she is being extremely biased, and because she has to interject to make her point, it seems like she has no idea what she's talking about. Now, I need to stress here that I do not think it is a problem that she is a woman, and because of that she does not know what she's talking about or whatever sexist things people keep writing in the comments. I just don't think that the role fits what Molly wants to do currently, and she has to get her own show eventually, or at least have Stephen A. Smith and Max set her up with questions where she can get the talking time she wants without ruining the show, because she honestly makes a lot of the segments unbearable to a point where I switch to something else. It's that bad.
I'm calling you out. I'm so sick of these people. You know, oh!
Speaking of unwatchable, I don't think there's anything worse on First Take than when Stephen A. Smith takes a break from the show and they have one of their analysts fill in for him. Excluding some of the guys like Will Kane and a lot of the football guys they bring on, the fill-in hosts are absolutely awful. It's perfectly understandable that the quality would drop down for a fill-in episode, especially when they have to replace the energy of someone like Stephen A. Smith on the show. But replacing him with guys like Ryan Hollins is just not okay. Even guys like Will Kane, who I think are decent to have on his third host with Stephen A. Smith and Max, are awful when they have to carry out the hosting on First Take by themselves, due to the fact that it feels like they're trying to match the energy level that is normally on the show and say stupid shit just to get clicks and have some viewer retention. I know this sounds extremely harsh, but ESPN seriously needs to reevaluate how they pick on-air talent, as pretty much everyone they've picked up as an analyst sucks on air. I've referenced them a lot, but FS1 has done a really good job of picking rotational talent in guys like Chris Broussard, who to ESPN's credit was originally an ESPN guy. I think a lot of the issues come from the fact that they get previous players to come and do the hosting job, which while they make good analysts on paper, are usually not ready for the full-time hosting gig. This is one of those areas that I was talking about before where I don't really have a lot of good ideas for, other than just please fix it, as it would just make the show so much better and provide ESPN with more flexibility with the schedules, as well as having a guy that can bounce from show to show and kill it every single time like Chris does.
His very first move as the executive was to sign Lamar Odom, who was on crack.
Moving on to my final opinion, I hate it when Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman argue for argument's sake. Now, this is a broader opinion, and I think it's very subjective to the viewer, but I personally feel like Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman argue too much on First Take. Now, I know you're probably thinking that's the whole point of the show, is to argue and debate, but in my personal opinion, I don't find it entertaining when people argue for the sake of arguing. Like, just as an example, a lot of times when Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman agree on a subject, they will fish for little things to have an argument over, instead of actually agreeing and talking about why they agree. Now, some people may enjoy that and feel like it brings more complex arguments and more enjoyment, and I can totally see where you're coming from, but I feel like more complex conversations come out when both Stephen A. and Max agree on a subject and just go in depth on why they agree, rather than just reaching for an argument that they both really don't care about. I think this is specifically a Stephen A. and Max Kellerman chemistry thing, because it wasn't as apparent when Skip Bayless was co-hosting, or at least if they did it, it came out as more of a joke. But if they can come to the middle ground more often, I think the show will be a lot more intriguing, for the simple fact that they actually believe in what they're talking about. Like I said beforehand, I could be wrong about this, and you may disagree with everything I'm talking about, but the purpose of this video is to highlight a couple of things that are the most annoying in my opinion, that First Take could change without too much effort on the production side of things, minus the whole fire every fill-in host thing. I grew up on guys like Stephen A. Smith, and as a boxing fan, I love having Max Kellerman on with Stephen A. as a tandem, but I also think that the show could use a lot of improvement in its current state, as I do think it has the potential to be a lot better than it is now. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to rate, comment, and subscribe, and tell me what you think down below in the comment section. I make videos like this 2 to 3 times every week, giving my honest opinions on all things basketball and general sports media. Until next time.